Welcome, everybody, to the May 7, 2018 Board of Selectmen's meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Well, Pat, can you turn those mics down just a little bit? Holy cow. Okay, citizen statements and petitions. Any citizen statements and petitions? Hearing none, seeing none. All right, adoption of previous meeting minutes for 3/26/18 and 4/9/18. Mark, I'll take a
I
motion.
move to approve the meeting minutes of 3/26/18 and 4/9/18.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, correspondence to the board. So consider allowing the Lions Club to hold a toll road on May 19th, 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Take a motion.
I move to allow Lions Club to hold a toll road May 19th, 2018 from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Second.
Discussion on that. Seems we allow them to do this every year. I can't see any reason why we wouldn't continue on with that.
Yeah, it's gonna be right in the downtown center, right the same place that...
Yeah, corner
Nice
of, corner of Route 16 and North Ave, correct. Yep. Any further discussion on that?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And consider allowing parking on Lot 3, North Avenue, and Lots 6 and 20, Milford Street, fee waivers for the Lions Club Circus on July 9th. Any motion on that?
I move to allow the parking on Lot 3 North Ave and Lots 6 and 20 Milford Street and waive associated fees for the Lions Club Circus on July 9th.
Second.
Discussion on that. Again, same as, I guess, the toll road. They do the circus every year. And I couldn't see any reason why we wouldn't have granted it in years past. Any further discussion on that?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Interview and consider appointment of Ellen Pond to the Board of Registers for a term to expire March 31st, 2021.
I move to appoint Ellen Pond, Board of Registrars, for a term to expire March 31st, 2021.
Second.
All right. Looks like we have Ellen here.
Yep.
With our town clerk.
Hi.
How are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
Good. Welcome. What interests you to the Board of Registers?
I got involved in the town committee, and then I've been working for the ZACM campaign and just got very involved in voting accessibility.
Okay. Thank you. All right. How much time does it take on the Board of Registers?
It depends on how busy we are with nomination papers and initiative petitions. Right now, tomorrow's the deadline for statewide candidates. Last week was the deadline for local and representatives and stuff, so we've had quite a few petitions in the office.
Wow.
So, I mean, basically we use the registrars, they have to come in and sign. We use them for election day coverage in the office, last day to register to vote in the office. So,
Reminded me of who the other registrars are, Margaret.
Rob Crotty and Cheryl Spindell.
Okay.
So there's how many total?
3 plus the town clerk.
Great. And you got the time and willing to dig in, huh?
Yeah, I guess.
That's fantastic. And did we have any other applicants on this?
Well, I petitioned to the Democratic Town Committee, and they gave me Ellen's name, and then I
Okay.
approached Ellen.
You
Okay.
didn't give the Republicans a chance.
I need a Democrat.
Who is it Rob Crotty that's the...
Yeah.
Oh, I see, there's a certain mix of them.
Yeah.
I understand, okay.
Can't do that.
I didn't know how it worked, okay? I wasn't trying to stack the deck.
Has to be a mix.
Stack the
Has to be
deck,
two and two.
I wasn't trying to do that.
One way or the other. Okay, so you had one from the Democratic. All right, great. I really don't have any more questions, guys,
No,
do you?
I'm good. I'm quite
Oh,
happy with the
great.
candidate.
All right, any other discussion on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much for your willingness to step up.
Thank you.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, interview and consider appointment of Morris Schmidt to the Mendon Town Forest Committee for a term to expire June 30th, 2020. And I see Moritz walking up. Hey, Moritz.
What's going on, guys?
Welcome. You didn't have enough on your plate, huh?
Yeah.
So what interests you in the Forest Committee, Moritz?
So I got involved kind of, well, as Rich knows, I've been a Boy Scout pretty much since I started, since we moved here. And it's always been kind of a passion for the outdoors that I've had. And the more I got involved with the Blacksville Valley NEMBA, the Mountain Biking Association, I kind of learned a little bit more about the town forest. And kind of this came up as a great opportunity for me to get involved in a piece of land that I really enjoy using, and kind of to help the town realize what's out there, realize what this property has to offer, and then kind of assist in all aspects of maintaining it, keeping up with the trails, that sort of thing.
Oh, great.
What's your petitioner feeling relative to hunting? I know there's a little bit of, that goes on with
Yep.
versus, I just wonder what your thought process is on that.
So I'm very open to it. I myself actually have hunted in the Mendon Town Forest. And I don't say the kind of struggle goes back and forth a lot between, I see it all the time, even between mountain bikers and hunters, and it's kind of one of those things, the way I look at it is everyone has their season and everyone has to play nice. There's certain days that are off limits for hunting, but at the same time, it's not exclusively for use by hunters during that time, and you have to be respectful that other people are still going to be using that area.
So you're in favor of balance?
Yeah, Mark?
I'm perfectly comfortable.
Yeah.
Candidate's well known to me.
Yeah, listen, Moritz, we've known you for a long time. I appreciate your willingness to step up, and of course, we're still going to need you on some building committees, but, love it that, you've been committed to the town, and, I think it's fantastic. So I don't have any more questions as well. All right, any further discussion on that? All right, all in favor?
You didn't have
I
a
don't think we
motion
need
yet.
a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you already did the motion. So you're doing a motion, so,
I move to
Ahead of
appoint
myself.
Moritz Schmidt to the Mendon Town Forest Committee for a term to expire June 30th, 2020.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
guys.
Maureen.
Thank you.
Cool.
We're gonna have to get you one of those T-shirts a while back, Mr. Rudden, at one of the Cub Scout events. You might even been there. He had these T-shirts that said, "Stop me before I volunteer again."
That one, and then was it the coffee mug with all the adults that said 1 hour a week where everyone was
That's
laughing?
right. That's right.
Okay, so discuss the green electricity aggregation. I think you want to come up. Ann, how are you tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
This is two things that I wanted to talk about and figure out how to move forward. One is green aggregation, the other is possibly forming an energy and sustainability committee. So right now, Mendon aggregates the power with Colonial Power, but they do not include any renewable energy except for like the minimum of 13%. And so I'd like to try to work to get some renewable energy in there. Other towns have done it, and it costs either the same rate or sometimes even less. I'd like to encourage Class 1 renewable energy with Colonial or other companies, investigate if possible. The Class 1 renewable energy is renewable energy that's in Massachusetts, so it's, encouraging new projects in the state and creating local jobs and clean energy. And so I think our contract runs out in November with the aggregation. And so I'd like to have some time to work with some other people, possibly in Kim, to see what the other options might be.
Okay, so I just want to summarize what I think I'm hearing and see if I get it. Are you saying that maybe Colonial isn't a green aggregator? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they have the minimum is 13% renewable energy and no more than that. And there's other companies that offer more renewable energy.
Okay, so you want to look and compare other municipal aggregators and potentially switch based upon the percentage of renewable energy.
Well, and also price, because there are competitive, companies that have more renewable energy.
So just to take it one step further, what I'm hearing is that you're hopeful that you would find somebody who is brokering an aggregate program that would be more in favor of more green technologies, et cetera. Okay. I wouldn't
I don't have a problem
Be
with
opposed to
that.
that.
I'll be right up front and saying if their track record costs 1 penny more to the people of Mendon, even a cent or a fraction of a cent more, I would not be in favor, but just so you know.
Yeah, but
it
we-
would have to be savings neutral in my view,
Yeah, and that's what we
or
would.
better.
or better, that's right.
Right, and that's what we would be looking at. And other towns have accomplished that, so hopefully we can.
Okay.
And you're asking for a committee. How many people do you want on this committee? And
Well, so the committee, right now, the Land Use Committee, we started, like Green Communities, Solarize Mass Save Community Initiative, the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, and they don't really fit under land use. And, they're really kind of more of energy and sustainability. And so it just seems, I think we're at a point where we could really use a committee to handle these projects. And like the green aggregation, that committee would also, follow it through and, make sure that, the town's getting the best energy company that, at the best price with more renewable energy. And the programs I mentioned, they brought in more than $600,000 to the town. So another reason to have a committee like this is it would pull in some new energy, some new people, and I've talked to people who are interested, and they could work on applying for these types of grants in the future. And also, the town has an annual town cleanup, and it usually comes up, but there's not really one group that helps organize it. And so this group kind of take that on, working with all the groups that do it now, the the Lions Club, the Blackstone Heritage Quarter, et cetera. And then maybe expand upon that. There's a lot of recycling grants that can be gotten from the state. And so this would be the committee that could kind of work on those kinds of projects.
so what would you title the committee? The Green Committee?
Well, no, the Energy and Sustainability Committee is kind of covers it, I think.
Because you touched upon a lot of stuff, that's why I'm asking.
Right, but that's why energy, that would be like the green communities. And then Bill McHenry, or whoever's in charge of the green communities program would have a committee to work with and get some support and, bounce ideas off of. And then the sustainability is sort of like the town cleanup, recycling, that type of thing. So, it would be nice to have like a Board of Health member, possibly someone from Concom, maybe like a school representative who might pull kids into the different projects. And I don't really know, so, and I don't know, like, if you can have like an ad hoc committee and then we sort of organize it, and then if it works well, you make it more permanent. I'm not really sure how committees work, so.
I guess, for me, guys, I think just the title of it, if you can encompass all the things that you just listed and call it one title, I'm certainly not opposed to, forming a committee or anybody who's willing to step up and help the community. So, but I heard you tie in electricity into cleanup, into, there was a bunch of things that you were highlighting. So I don't think a Green Electricity Aggregation Committee is the right title for it. Or
It would be an Energy and Sustainability
energy
Committee.
but how do you tie cleanup into energy sustainability?
Well, it's people that are interested in those topics tend to be interested in all those topics. And so, I don't know, the people I've talked to, like Emilio Perez, he's really interested in the town cleanup and doing more with that. Carolyn Barthel, she works more with the energy, but they're all interested in those topics. So the sustainability part of it kind of opens it up a little bit more.
Okay.
Because right now it's under land use, and it really isn't land use, you know?
Ms. Newman, if we didn't take this approach, what would happen when this municipal aggregation contract ends?
It'll be the same as last time, which is we have the option to contract with them for a certain length of time through the Colonial.
I know we do. I'm asking you what you presume the process would have been in our group in Mendon to either continue or select a new provider.
Well, one of the things that Ann knows and we've talked about before is when we had the option to purchase the different types of electricities, green is one of the options that we can choose from among all the different, we have that component already within our existing aggregation structure when we're selecting who the provider will be. Because you're purchasing the energy. So some of it is wind, some of it is 100% wind, but the cost is slightly higher. So I think we'll probably still be using Colonial to help broker the deal, but if we had a committee in place, they could help vet through the different options of which is preferable. Ann told me that even though it says 100% green and it's wind, it's not really 100%. There are other better providers for this, and that's been outside the scope of what we were looking at, so.
Okay, so are you saying that if you took the green issue off the table, you would have expected some kind of committee-based approach to choose another supplier anyway?
No.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
No.
Forget the green part, pretend
Definitely
that doesn't
not.
exist.
But it is a little bit complicated in the sense that there were, let's say, a dozen different types of energy we could have purchased from, right? And we solely made our decision based upon pricing, right? Because that was the number one driver. But some of the other options were green, and we could have looked at them. Now, I don't know that if a committee wasn't in place to help support the green piece and bring the counter arguments to the board, we probably would not consider it. So we probably would just solely look at pricing. So if you want to have a group.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking you.
Yes.
If we had not done this, would you naturally have expected a handful of some people to say, hey, I know your contract's renewing, here's a couple of alternate options? I mean, what would you have expected to happen?
I would have, same as last time, which is this group would have come forward, we would have contracted with them, then when the time came to do the bid, we would have looked at the different energy sources, looked at costs, and selected the
Okay, got it.
lowest.
That's what I wanted to know. Okay.
The one, can I say something? The one thing too is it doesn't have to be 100% renewable. You know, it could be just like a portion of it. And possibly there'd be other companies other than Colonial Power that could offer better pricing with having more renewable. That's the kind of thing that could be looked
So
into.
I get that, Ms. Mazar. My concern is only having to have another committee. I mean, just it's so tough getting people on committees and stuff, and then we tap the same people over and over again, and I don't know, just a little.
Well, I have some new people, and I think that, like, if we advertise that this was a committee, I think we could get some new people. And like I said, right now, this is all under land use, and it's just like too much, you know? Like, I think it would be good to have another committee that could focus on that, and, you know.
Oh, I think it would be good if we had it. It just.
I mean, it seems, I think it's a good time to try it. You know, I think that it might be able to work.
You've been pretty motivated on this, and for a long time, you know, on these types of committees. I have no problem in my view, guys, if you're willing to step up and try to form a group of folks that are willing to look at it. I share the same sentiment as my colleague here, that if it goes up 1 penny, if it goes up 1 cent, I won't be interested in it. So, you know, if you guys want to go out and investigate and come back and report to us, for me, I think it's a win-win. I think your challenge is going to be getting committed folks to jump on the bandwagon, unless you want to roll up your sleeves and work directly with Kim on it. Either way, you know, the information has to come to the board.
Right.
You know, so however we get there, you know, I'm fine with.
Yeah.
So that's the green aggregation part. So in the committee, should I try to form a committee, or do you need to vote on that? You know, I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying, not to put too fine a point on it, is if you're stepping up to drive it, then fine.
Well, I will be on it. I have someone else that might drive it.
No, I understand
But,
that. I'm saying if you drive the formation and push it to get it going, right? 'Cause we have so many things we're already mixed up in that we need another, you know, activity like we need a hole in our head sometimes. So if you are happy to do it, then great.
Okay.
Well, I still think we should treat it like any other committee and advertise it out. I mean,
Oh,
obviously,
absolutely.
if you find people, just go through the same process.
Yep.
All right, so I'll talk to Kim then on details on that.
All right, and then we'll,
But you know as well as I do, right, we could, the advertising's the easy part, right?
No, I get
It's a
that.
lot of work driving to get people interested, get them on and give them a charter and direct
That's
them.
right.
What have you.
okay. All right, anything else on that? No? So, obviously, we don't have a motion, we don't have to do a motion tonight on this, you'll,
Yeah, I don't think we.
Well, at some point, we'll have to vote to form the committee.
inform the committee. I mean, I have no problem even doing it tonight if you want to do it, but I just don't know how many members or anything else like that, so,
Well, why don't we wait for a recommendation from Ms.
that's
Mayor?
fine, that's fine. Okay,
So, okay, so just sort of work on the committee idea and then come
Yep.
back to you
that's fine,
and get it on the agenda? Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we should find a scope, I mean, beyond just aggregation, right? So
Oh,
we're gonna have
well-
to look for some purposes beyond just that one, and then draft that, and then vote, and number of members, and like you said, which committees they come from, and are they
Yeah.
voting members, are they ex officio members? I mean, we need some guidelines.
Well, with this committee also, though, like, it would be the recycling, the cleanup days, that whole aspect also.
Right.
And
Okay,
whatever they might figure out.
Which would be helpful,
okay,
point of contact.
all right, so moving off of that, unless there's any further discussion on that. No?
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Municipal vulnerability preparedness.
So Ted and Susan are here. They are the consultants that Mendon hired with the grant money that we received. Susan Thomas. Yep.
Thanks, Susan, how are you?
And Ted Bovee, and they're with the Blackstone River Watershed Association. So the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program was a program and is a program offered by the state to help towns deal with the effects of this extreme weather events and effects of climate change like droughts, flooding, record-breaking temperatures. The town received the grant to do the consulting, to receive the technical assistance to put together a program for Mendon. And Ted's going to kind of go over the process and what happened, but we had workshops to figure out where Mendon was at and where our vulnerabilities were and what we could do to improve them. And we had really good participation. It was like 30 people that came to the 2 workshops, and the workshops were 4 hours, right?
Right,
Yeah,
4 hours each.
4-hour workshops. And then we had 8 on the project team, some were like technical consultants and experts in different areas. And, you know, we had people from fire, police, highway, Board of Health, Concom. It was a really good mix of people. Mark was there. So anyways, Ted will tell you a little bit more about that. Right now, we have, the draft report is put together, and now we're passing it around to get feedback from people to make sure that it's accurate. And then after that, and actually, we're going to post it on the website so people can read the draft report for the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. And would like to get comments that anybody might have. And then from that, Mendon will have the report, and then the grant project will be done, but then we can move forward with this information. I'm the coordinator for the program in the town, so I'm willing to take that information and work with the different department heads to see what grants we might be able to write, or, there's a lot of things we can do also just to make improvements, so.
Good. Yeah, so I'm Ted Bovee. I'm with the Blackstone River Watershed Association. I'm a member of the board, and we as an association care a lot about the Blackstone Valley and the towns and the watershed and the resources here, and we decided to get into this MVP program as a service provider, so that's been our role. We basically help the town get through the process, because the state, when the governor came out with his executive order a couple years ago and established this program, they created a fairly defined framework that they wanted all towns to adhere to. And so that's what we did, and we got the town through the process with a lot, as Ann said, a lot of great help from town members. So the handout here, this matrix, I know there's a lot here. We will go through it and describe it, but it's basically, I think probably I can explain it. I'll explain kind of the headings, and Ann will talk about the content, because the content is what came out of the workshop, and the content is ultimately what Mendon has to go forward with its plan to implement. So this becomes your plan. We helped you to get there, so to speak. So the idea of this community resilience building is that you get together stakeholders, like we did for 2 half-day sessions, and they talk about different features in the town in categories of infrastructure, environmental, and societal. They talk about where these things are located, if there's a physical location, where it is, who owns it, and then they talk about whether it's a vulnerability or a strength. Mendon has a number of strengths going into this process, but like most towns, you also have some things that need some work. Those are the vulnerabilities. You take these different features and you look at them relative to the hazards across the top there: extreme precipitation, heat waves and drought, damaging winds, and wildfire. So if you look at those hazards relative to something like emergency shelters, you kind of get things where they match up. In other words, if there's a major precipitation event, if there's a major heat wave, a major winter storm, any of those things could trigger the need for emergency sheltering. And then there's priority high, medium, and low, and whether the timeline is short term or ongoing or long term. This is intended to look to the future, a future where the predictions, the projections are that storms are likely to get worse, rainfall is likely to become more intense, summers are likely to get hotter, those kinds of things. So that's factored in here as per the Commonwealth's direction, that it look at those hazards in light of a changing climate. So we did all that, and we've got the draft report, as Ann said. The draft report runs about 14 pages. It'll be on the website for review and comment. This is one of the appendices. This is kind of the summary matrix that brings everything together basically onto one page. So this is kind of the condensed version that you'll be working with, and we'll be talking about more tonight.
When you say the website, you mean ours or yours?
It'd be Mendon's website, yeah. We're actually finishing up our role as the Blackstone River Watershed Association. This is the public listening session that's required by the Commonwealth. So that's what this meeting tonight is, meeting that requirement. And then the comments come in, the final report's prepared, submitted to the Commonwealth, and then you get certified as an MVP community, and that makes you eligible for grants. And I can talk a little bit more about that, but do you want to go over some of the key actions now, Ann?
Sure. Just kind of briefly, an overview. Some of the assets Mendon had was that in 2017, a hazard mitigation plan was put together. So Mark Pacino gave us a whole overview on that, and that was really helpful. So, we were working around that. There are some emergency generators at the senior center, Clough School, and the DPW barn. There's the fire tower. We have the communications tower in Inman Hill, and we have a reverse 911 system. The senior center is a very active location for people to meet. The town received a $400,000 grant for improving road surfaces. We have some town water in certain locations, which could be, helpful if people's wells weren't working. And Mendon is blessed to have an extremely strong volunteer base. That was something that came out in a lot of interviews and in the program.
Do you have what you're reading off of?
No, this is in the report, though.
Yeah.
And we have two major attractions in Mendon, the Mendon Drive-In, Southwick Zoo. And another interesting thing is that for 30 years, Mendon has had the highest income for Blackstone Valley, which is kind of interesting. So we do have some money to work on programs. And environmentally, we have a lot of open space, which is helpful, and we have a lot of natural resources, ponds, streams, Lake Nipmuc. So some of the areas that we need to improve upon are having an emergency shelter that is larger and has a generator that could hold more people and possibly run like air conditioning, things like that, in case of an outage or an extremely, hot weather event. Another thing that is needed is the the tower in Inman Hill that people communicate through needs a generator, because when the power's out, I guess that doesn't work. So in 2016, Mendon had a bylaw review of local land use standards relative to low-impact development, and that was a report done by Mass Audubon, and it says, like, indicates all the different bylaw changes that could be done that would help make Mendon more resilient to, flooding and things like that, and a lot of them are just nature-based solutions, and so implementing that would be important. And there's more, but it's in the report, and so basically we'll use these things, these different items, and talk to the different departments and see, where we might want to make improvements. One other thing that was mentioned that would be helpful is interdepartment meetings, like twice a year, just communicating.
Yeah, and those were all things that came out of the workshop, and those last items Ann mentioned were kind of the actions. She touched on some of the action items that are in the handout. And previously, she was kind of talking about some of the strengths that Mendon has as a town, things that you're already doing very well. So you don't really need to worry about that, except to keep on. But there's other things that you might want to address. As far as the nature-based approaches, that was always part of the process. I mean, it obviously includes things like replacing culverts. It includes infrastructure related to roads and maintaining the power supply and pruning trees and so that they don't fall on the power lines, those kinds of things. But there is an emphasis on nature-based approaches that the Commonwealth has. And there's a funding opportunity right now. The Commonwealth put out a very short turnaround. They sent it out on April 13th, and the action grants, so-called, to implement this program close on May 11th. So it's a real quick turnaround. But they had $5 million available statewide that they wanted to see if they could get some towns to take on some projects and start implementing with the MVP program. And they said in here that projects that propose nature-based solutions or strategies that rely on green infrastructure or conservation and enhancement of natural systems will receive higher scores. So they're saying that right in this announcement for action grants. So that is one thing that they're looking at. As far as other grants, the Commonwealth, the executive branch came out with a $300 million 5-year proposal to fund this MVP program and other kinds of disaster response, and that's going to the legislature. So it remains to be seen how that'll turn out, but they hope that they'll have more money over a longer period of time to implement this. They're also going to take this MVP certification that communities get, and they're going to add bonus points to a town that's MVP certified, and their intent is to get that across the board for all types of grants from all departments in state government. So being an MVP certified community going forward should be maybe a +5 points for almost any kind of grant proposal or program that the Commonwealth offers. So that's kind of why it's worth it for towns to join in. And you folks are actually early on. You're part of the 66 communities that are going through the first round of this planning and coming to a conclusion. And we expect the Commonwealth to approve and certify you in June by the deadline.
One thing I didn't mention also is like the senior center, we voted at the town meeting to, investigate, expanding it or, building it in another location. And that would be a good time to think about maybe making an emergency shelter area, and then, have a generator and have all the things that are needed for that. And then the MVP grant might be able to help, with that type of thing. So There's a lot of different ways it could be used.
So really quick on your matrix, on your vulnerabilities or your strengths, I noticed that column wasn't filled in.
Right.
So is there a reason why we're not?
When we had individual breakout groups when we did the workshop, and each time they put down whether something was a vulnerability or a strength. This is kind of the aggregation of all that work, and this is actually focusing on the vulnerabilities. So we probably should have a V pretty much in each column, because the idea is that these are things that need more work. These are things that maybe require funding.
Sure.
The emergency response was the top priority from the workshops, and the components of that have to do with shelters, alert system, and emergency generators. And the idea is that to have a shelter system that would work year-round, that would provide meals, sleeping, and showers for some number of people, with a backup generator sufficiently powerful to make sure that that's all continuing when the power goes out. And that was something that a lot of people felt Mendon needed.
Would that be a non-nature-based solution?
That would be non-nature-based.
What's the target date on trying to complete? I mean, there's a lot of stuff on this list, obviously, but is there a targeted date, Ann, on when you want to start knocking off even some of the low-hanging fruit on this, or?
I think just starting, after the program is complete, I'm assuming that on May 18th, there's a grant deadline date, which, that's 10 days, so I don't think we're going to do too much in that, although Ted had an idea.
Well, and again, part of the problem is that the Commonwealth requires a 25% match. It could either be in kind or cash.
So we say 25 cent?
25 cent, yeah, 25%. So 25 cents would work better. So 25%, it's very difficult for towns to come up with that, although they can make a commitment. A town could make a commitment to the 25% match. But for that Inman Hill facility you have, the communications tower, maybe it's possible to get a generator in there. Maybe that's something, but again, there's very little time to make a proposal, and the town would still have to come up with 25% of the cost of that.
I don't know if the, highway and police and fire have a discretionary fund that they could put towards something like that, because I assume they all use the communication,
Dave's nodding his head yes.
Yeah.
I guess the other question is, obviously this is a big program. I'm trying to get my head around, all of our strengths right now also, and how do we rate from our strengths to our vulnerabilities right now in respect to our preparedness?
Well, I think, Mendon, the strengths were, again, this is a new program, so I guess I don't have a lot to compare it to.
Sure.
But I think for a small town, Mendon has a lot of strength. You had the strength to get together and decide to take on this project, and most towns in the Commonwealth did not. So you've got interest, you've got volunteers. You had stakeholder turnout that was wonderful. The department heads and employees all showed a lot of interest and commitment, so I think you've got a lot going for you.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at, Ted, is there a percentage rating that we're trying to achieve? Because there's a lot of stuff on this list right now.
Yeah,
we might not be able to achieve.
Yeah,
it.
Just stack rank the
Just-
importance of the things.
Or stack
Yeah.
ranking the importance, or exactly, yeah.
I didn't really answer your question in terms of the timing. After the report's done in June or whatever, then sort of just working through the different items and talking to the different department heads, and probably having meetings with people to figure out, what the low-hanging fruit is, and also what we should be working towards. So I'd say in the next year, I would like to get in the next grant round, which I'm assuming is next May.
Yeah.
Or sooner if they get this, depending on this $300 million proposal. The Baker administration wants to see this program succeed. They want to see towns implement. You're not required to do anything, but you're strongly encouraged to take your plan and chip away at it.
Gotcha.
And implement it. And the Commonwealth is saying they're going to help provide funding or priority ranking to facilitate you doing that.
Gotcha, okay.
Chris, kind of to your point about timing-wise, if you look at the far right column, it kind of gives you an idea of what is seen as
High priority.
the priority, but also the timing, what there's short-term, long-term, and ongoing. So I know going through that workshop, one of the things that really stuck out for me was the lack of backup energy for the Inman Hill Communications Tower.
Mhm.
I really thought that was important in the case of an emergency, if that tower goes out, communications will be lacking for police and fire and highway. So I thought that was really something we should look at short-term, and as you see there, it's a high priority short-term.
We can look into that, I can ask around.
And we talked
Figure out
about
what's needed
that it
and
was
see.
probably something that we could take care of in the short term.
Yeah.
Wasn't a huge item.
I see 1, 2, 3, probably 4 items on here that are short-term. You know,
Like down on the bottom, sorry to interrupt you, but the semi-annual interdepartmental meetings, I mean, those are things, that's something we can just do.
Yeah,
There's no-
yeah.
Right, that doesn't cost anything,
That doesn't
that's just a
anything, yeah,
commitment to
All
do
right,
it.
so 1,
And
2, 3.
there's also things like, we have the reverse 911, but a lot of people have their house phones on it, and a lot of people don't use house phones, so, educating people to give their cell phone numbers so that if there is an emergency, everyone would be contacted. That wouldn't cost any money, but it would be an important thing to do, or have some kind of,
Anything that's a CapEx item ought to go to the CapEx committee for prioritization amongst all our other things too, right?
Of course. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have to follow a process, so, and that would be part of the process. So I guess from my expectation is that I'd be, looking forward to hearing back from you, hearing your recommendations going forward. I would be looking for an order of priority and, things that really we should be focusing on. And then putting some timelines on these also. Is this something you want to accomplish in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? I don't know. You guys have to tell us, because then that has to go to the CapEx, and you have to be able to give CapEx some direction, and then eventually yourself and CapEx would be coming back to the board and making a recommendation to us. At that point, we would, either decide or not decide to move forward and bring it to town meeting. Is what I would
Well,
envision.
not these guys, right? You're only engaged for.
Not him, but the committee.
Yeah, we're
I'm talking
finishing
about
up.
the committee. Yeah, they're finishing up. I'm talking about the committee.
So did I hear you say that we can assume a V in every one of, in this whole column here?
That's what he
this
said.
VRS column? Did you say that?
They were, well, like the alert system. So the alert system that you have in the town was identified as a strength and a vulnerability. It's a strength because you have one. It's a vulnerability because not as many people are signed into it as there should be. So some of these are both, but as far as actions, they're vulnerabilities insofar as the town needs to do something to make it better.
I think the column's misleading, yeah.
Yeah, so vulnerability kind of sounds a little harsh, but that's the terminology they use.
Okay, can I say this then? Are you saying that for all of the items listed here, all the rows, there's some piece of that aspect that has some amount of vulnerability that in the perfect world you'd triage?
That's right. You would definitely do something,
So
again,
if something was 100% good, it's not on this list?
if it's 100% good, then it
Didn't make it on
really
this list.
wouldn't be. So
That's why that column's
So
misleading.
like you're right, it would be either something that totally needs to be done, or in most cases, it's a mix. Drainage culverts, you're doing some work now, but there's more to do.
I'm good, thank
That
you.
kind of, yeah.
Thank you.
So, keep in mind that the report, all the appendices will include the initial risk matrix for each of the breakout groups. Okay, so we had 3 breakout groups, and they worked on strengths and vulnerabilities. Those matrices will identify things that are pure strengths, pure vulnerabilities, and things that were vulnerable and strength together. So when we did our whole group exercise and we voted on the actions, the idea being that this whole group matrix represents the action points, the things that need work done.
Right.
So we're not saying by putting this forward, we're negating all the strengths. We're saying this is where you need to work on. You can certainly go back to the report and see the things that are pure strengths that are great, just continue what you're doing kind of thing. But for this matrix here, it speaks to everybody's input at the workshop that put in all the time. They had a lot of information. A lot of people here at the workshops were lifelong residents and had a lot of positions in the community. But this is meant to inform decision-making going forward. So let's say as you look at development in town, you might refer back to this and say, well, this shows that we have a flooding issue at this intersection. We should be aware of that when we talk to the developer. Or if Fish and Wildlife Service puts out some kind of proposal to assist with beaver trapping, that might inform what you have here. So again, you don't have to act immediately on all these things, but you're right. There are several things that are short-term that can be taken off the list with one fell swoop. And many of the things are voluntary. Just getting more volunteers activated in the community. And I was talking about starting up a new committee. draw on these volunteers that are very engaged and give them specific roles. So not everything's going to require capital expenditure, right? But the idea is this is going to be a reference document that, as other business comes before you at town meetings and whatnot, you'll have this document to refer back to and say, well, if we were looking for a place to improve our culverts, or if we're looking for a place to improve our infrastructure for gas pipelines or whatever, this will tell you that.
Perfect.
So it's a reference document as much as an action list.
Gotcha.
I think, Chris,
Chief?
Hill is a big detriment to me. During the snowstorms we had a bunch of trees come down, knocked out the complete radio system for the fire department. We had to work with the police department, design a program so we could use their radio system, because their radio system had a backup, ours didn't. And I talked to Chief Kersey about possibly moving forward to doing something on Indian Hill. At this point, Indian Hill doesn't have a generator, so we've got different contingency plans to take care of that. Until you folks do put a generator up there. But we had no communications whatsoever at one point during summer.
Yeah, that's not good. Okay. All right, any other comments or concerns on this? Oh, great. Well, thank you very much for coming in, and thanks for all your hard work on it.
Appreciate it.
All right, great, thank you. Okay. All right, agenda item number 9, discuss clear cutting with the Conservation Commission. Okay, so let me just give everybody a little insight about this next agenda item. This is the way that I understand it. Basically, the way I understand it is the Concom gave a property owner on Lake Nipmuc approval to do some what they call vista pruning, which is tree trimming and maintenance to the property. The Concom is the authority having jurisdiction over the matter. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. This board here has received many letters and inquiries from concerned citizens wondering what if the maintenance on the property was done in accordance with Mass General Law or the DEP regulations. And the other thing that I'm clear of right now is that the Concom is working closely with the owner and the DEP to rectify the situation up on the parcel. So basically, that's what I understand in respect to what's going on in the situation right now. Mark, you got anything to add on that?
The only thing I would say is, I'm not sure that Concom actually did give permission to do so. I think that's kind of where the issue started. So I wouldn't say they gave permission, but I think since they've been made aware, they've taken some actions by working with DEP on ensuring in the future things don't happen like this again, and DEP taking action on the owner and putting forward some orders. So there's been action taken on this item by both the state and conservation. I know there's members here, I don't know if they want to talk about what they've learned through this, or what DEP has talked to them about. I mean, it's up to them, but.
You want to?
So, yeah, he did make an inquiry to,
Yeah, why don't you come on up and hit the mic, Tim? Come on up, we're a happy bunch up here.
so the owner did make an inquiry to do some trimming. And generally, we do allow trimming in the buffer zone. He obviously took it a little too far, and so we ended up contacting DEP after we realized how far he took it, and they got involved. They came down, they gave us some good feedback as to how we can try to manage it in the future, different ways to do it. So when people apply to do work in this area, anybody in town, not just around the lake or any wetland, So they suggested that we have a little bit different process. Anybody in the buffer zone, we have a meeting on it and notify all abutters. And then, if it's sensitive enough, we send it into DEP and get their input on it as well. So that's going forward. Now, he's under enforcement order now by the DEP. It's out of our hands, but we're going to be working with the DEP, just so you know, to whatever they put forward to him, any conditions, that's up to DEP. He's filing an order now. He had to hire a specialist to analyze it, and he has a time frame, which I'm sure you saw in the order, to respond, and that's all up to him now.
So I spoke with Damon this morning, and he mentioned that kind of what you're saying is DEP is giving guidance on changing the process that you've been using to be more effective for really the Conservation Commission and the public, to make it more transparent and just to avoid really something like this in the future. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, if this process was followed by the owner, we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
No.
So,
the other thing is too, I've been on the board for, about 16 years now. When we were in the different administration before Obama, that administration cut the DEP down to nothing. I'm sure you probably know that. And at one point, they didn't even want us to file any paperwork with them. We had no support, so it goes up and down, depending on what's going on in the economy. So if they don't have any money to support DEP, we don't get anything for support. But now they're taking in paperwork. There was a time where we didn't even send them. They didn't even file with them. They wanted it filed in locally. They didn't even want to handle any paperwork. So, there's support there now, and they've stepped up, and they said, we'll come down and help you out in any way. So we're going to take them up on it.
Now, I don't mean this as a criticism, but the effectiveness level or the funding level of the DEP shouldn't impact whether we follow our process the way we should be following our process, right?
No.
So here, it's pretty clear that we didn't get an NOI until after the work started.
We didn't get one until there was an enforcement order.
Right, we didn't get one at all, a notice of intent. We didn't, and we didn't issue, therefore, an order of conditions, right?
Right.
And that's required no matter what's going on at the DEP, right? We gotta do that.
After it goes through the process, yes.
Ultimately,
Over the years, as Tim was saying, the funding did affect how we have to manage. I'm looking at the board now, and over the years, there's a couple of members that are sitting right there in front of me that we dealt with as a commission back when the DEP didn't want anything. So, as Tim says, it goes up and down. It goes up and down. I'm dealing with, in Hopedale right now, I'm working in Hopedale, I'm dealing with the DEP now. They don't even have secretaries for their administrators.
Okay,
So the funding affects what the local decisions are made or how we handle it.
I guess, one second. The way I look at it is this. There's a process in place. What I'm hearing is that we're moving forward, with the process. We want to ensure that the process is being followed. And that way, we're not having these types of conversations, period.
It sounds, I'm not aware, I haven't heard what the state is recommending for our change, but it sounds like we are going to interpret that if anybody cuts a tree in the 100-foot buffer from a wetland, we are going to be asking for a public meeting, not a full notice of intent, but a public meeting where the applicant is going to have to document what they're proposing to do for cut how many trees they're going to cut, which trees they're going to cut, put it on a plan, come to a meeting, notify the abutters. That's going to be a lot of work.
Yep.
Now, that's not what Damon told me this morning.
Well, I don't know, because we have not met. I haven't heard DEP's. It was two
Came in
members of the
between-
Concom who
this came
said you
in
could go
between
ahead
two
and cut, and that would be normal. This is a kind of, this project is a little more in people's faces. But so it's showing what could happen, or if cutting of trees and what wetlands are more special than others. And by rights, he could have done it if that no one would have. But then there's the other issue, which is new to us. There's certain habitat that is endangered that we're supposed to know and tell the applicants, no, you can't do even other things because you have to get in touch with the wildlife agency. And that's another step that someone has to make to notify somebody who calls, do I have to do work? So we're going to get a lot more phone calls from the general public.
That's part of the notice of intent.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out which way you're going with this.
I don't know. I guess that the Concom is going to have to make a strong determination that if you cut vegetation in a 100-foot buffer, you are supposed to come to at least an informal RDA.
All right, well, let me say it this way for the sake of time, because I don't want to get wrapped up in the minutia of this. I would say that the Concom, you guys understand your job. You need to go back and you need to determine if you have to change your processes or not from what you've done in the past to what the future brings.
Well, they want us to change it a little bit.
All right, so if they
they've
want you
given
to
us the
change it, and then we're gonna, you have to ensure that you're meeting those requirements. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it requires you need 50 meetings. I have no idea whatsoever. As long as you guys are managing in the way that you're supposed to be managing, then there shouldn't be any questions, as far as I'm concerned. But, sir?
Well, just as a property owner in town, I would like to see, a opportunity to be aware of, this kind of activity and be able to weigh in. I mean, I'm sure that there probably are some guidelines from the state around if it's 10%, that's a lot different than 98%, as far as.
Altering vegetation and buffer.
So anyway, I think that the rules need to be established, but there should be some clear way for people in town to be aware. Maybe if it's going to be something more significant, it should happen in an open meeting with Concom, or these rules need to be made so that they're equal across all members of the town.
Let me just let Teresa ask a question. Okay.
Chris,
There's a matter of scope here, too.
Patrice, just real quick, I just want to address that, because with this specific situation, that probably would have happened where you would have a public meeting to be aware of it and maybe voice some concerns or ask some questions. So typically, with something like that, it should have happened.
If you were in a
We're
butter.
talking a different matter of scope. Here, this was 1,000-foot shoreline. This was acreage that was cut.
It's 700.
Okay.
Jane Lowell, 40 Millville Street. I'm just wondering how this information is going to be disseminated to owners.
Which information?
That are near wetlands. For instance, I have a vernal pool map of my property. The gentleman who's doing some developing next to me clear cut a whole lot of trees. I don't know whether it came from Concom or not, but it's all wetlands back there. So, but how do people get this information? I guess that would be the question. How do they?
So when someone comes in to file a notice of intent, that's a 300-foot radius of abutters that get notified. It's not the whole town. You don't notify the whole town. You notify whoever connects to that piece of property within 300 feet. It's a certified abutter. It's inserted in the packet for the file. It goes to the state, comes to us, and then it's advertised. Those people are notified, certified mail, whoever abuts it. And that's how the notice goes out.
Right, but it would have been on an agenda, a Concom agenda, where you would see.
Well, ultimately, it goes to the agenda after it's filed, and there's a number issued, and then it goes on an agenda.
I want to address this gentleman's comment. We are also working towards having live streaming in the building next door so that all meetings that are held over there will also be televised for the public, so information will be more transparent going forward.
That would be great.
It is in the paper, so it's advertised.
Ms.
I was just going to say, for instance, why would I know to file a notice of intent. If I were gonna cut down trees to put in a garden, for instance, near wetlands,
Yeah.
like that, which are, by the way, coming closer and closer to my house. Anyway, how would I know that I should come and file a notice of intent?
It's hard. It's a self-policing. I guess everyone is supposed to know that if you're altering vegetation within 100 feet of a wetland, you are supposed to come to the Concom to ask permission. So I don't know how we can publicize that more than...
It's really like almost any law out there. I mean, you know how many laws there are in this state, in this country, that we don't know what the law is, but just because you don't know, at the end of the day, doesn't mean that you are innocent if you break the
And
law.
is it a wetland or is it not? Do most people know? Well, you kind of know. A wetland, you know, where you step in it, it's up. Yes.
Yeah. So, listen, we all understand, it was a big project. I understand there's some emotion around the particular project itself. Clearly, the Concom is working with the DEP right now, and also with the owner of the parcel. Things evolve over time with the DEP and different regulations but we heard from the Concom tonight, that at one point they weren't providing as much resources and now they are. Whatever, it doesn't matter. You guys still have to abide by our bylaws and regulations and your processes that you put in place, as well. So going forward, clearly the expectation is that whatever you decide as a committee that's in accordance with the law and what you're supposed to be doing, that's the expectation.
One more question, I think just for Tim, because you've been working with Damon and DEP. Do you know if Judy or Denise will come to one of your meetings,
Yes.
or is going to?
They're gonna come, I think,
Okay.
Bill,
Good, Bill.
I spoke to the DEP circuit rider today, because it's apparent that we're gonna use we're gonna invoke the RDA, request for determination of applicability. That's a little bit step up above the local determination level. In other words, DEP's in on it, but it's less formal than and involved in the notice of intent. So for all those projects that fall in between there, it puts those on the map. And I spoke to them about what the requirements are in the course of that conversation. The circuit rider volunteered to come out, meet with the conservation committee. I suggested putting together like a table that would show, even for the public, which process would be used for which type of work and which exceptions, and it is not going to be incredibly clear even after we do it, because every circumstance depends on how it's interpreted.
I understand.
But yes, she's already volunteered to come to a meeting and
Okay.
give us customized attention.
All right. You good? You good?
So I had one more thing I wanted to say. So back to respond, I heard what you said before, Peter. I learned something brand new. I don't know if this is a new thing, but apparently there's a presumption that there is an impact until the person who wants to do it proves otherwise, I guess. So unfortunately, if they're doing any level of work, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. I mean, that's the law. And let me tell you, I much to the chagrin of Mrs. Schofield, I am no environmentalist at all. Let me tell you.
Each town does have a character.
One at a time. One at a time, please.
Each town does develop a character as to how hard they are, and could we take more time review if we really wanted to? Yes. Could we demand more and more? Yes. So, but we like to think that that's not providing the best service to the community at large.
Well, they could go too far. I understand that. I totally get your basic point.
Yes.
Somebody's trimming a couple of branches and cleaning something up. That's different than doing a whole bunch.
Listen, you guys, from my standpoint, I have to trust the judgment of the Conservation Commission. There's a lot that goes into it. I totally agree with what you just said. However, you also have to make sure that you're abiding by the context of the law. So if there's a substantial project like what just happened, then it needs to follow a formal process. You guys use your judgment. You know what you have to you have to do, and you guys have to stand up for what the decisions you make within your committee. You're the authority having jurisdiction, as I said earlier. So,
Thank you very much.
all right, very good, thank you. All right. Okay, moving on. Oops, as I drop my glasses. Consider a renewal of junk license, Bob White, 50 Cape Road. I'll take a motion.
I move to approve renewal of junk license for Mr. Bob White, 50 Cape Road, pending positive routing slips.
Second,
Discussion on
did
this,
we have an issue there
I don't know.
at one point?
I thought that today too, but I don't think this is the same location. I think it's a
Okay, but
different
even
paper.
so, we still are gonna go through the writing slip process, so if there's an issue, we'll pick it up.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so, any further discussion on this?
Nope.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, okay. Let's see, year-end interdepartmental transfers.
I move to approve year-end interdepartmental transfers as presented, but let's go through them.
Okay, well, I'll second it to have the discussion.
All right, so we have a number of transfers. I will sort of pass them down. Here's the original.
These the chapter 77 transfers?
Yes,
Are these one copy?
that's for you.
Okay.
Rich.
I cough because they're not called chapter 77 anymore, and I can't get out of the habit. I know it.
So you can start, there's different departments in
Are
there.
these all
They'll
different
come
ones?
forward. Yep, those are all different in this for you. So fires first, Chief Harris.
Why, oh, no, nay on that one.
So you said fires first, men and police, accounting, and conservation. Okay. And they just left. All right, so who wants to step us through fire?
The chief can come up and we can talk about
Chief, you want to come up and just talk us through what you're trying to do here?
When I went through the budget, I realized that the budget was a little short on certain areas. I believed that I could transfer it at the end. I talked to Kim and Chief Kersey, and they told me I have to go and do it in this manner. I've never done it this way before, so what I did is I transferred $54,000 out of chief's wages into the salary account and the FinCom reserve for $33,000 for a grand total of $87,000, as I am short on my salary account and my overtime account.
Okay. And we got the 33 in the FinCom reserve.
Yes, I verified the sources today.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a point of order real quick?
Yeah.
Ms. Newman, can you refresh our memory as to, based upon the Municipal Modernization Act, how the rules changed? Because I remember
No more caps,
there's no cap at all.
correct.
Okay, so if you have money that you expect to not use in any other line item, you can use it in some other
Correct.
line item within the last 2 months of the year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why you could tap out of the FinCom reserve, is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't have a question on any of this. I just wanted to refresh, because I know we got a few more to go through. I wanted to.
FinCom
Okay.
reserve will still need, obviously, to go to they all need to go to FinCom, but that one in particular needs the vote of FinCom to go forward.
Of course.
so.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Okay.
I'm always sensitive to these types of transfers, Mr. Berg, only because I don't like the public to feel like we're skirting their right to appropriate, right?
No,
But you get
I
to the end of the year and some things you get stuck.
Yep, it happens. Yep. Okay, any further discussion on this one? Okay, I'm all set on that one. Okay, thank you. Which one do you want to go to next?
Mine's next.
Okay.
Sign one. Okay, so this next one, I was just going through all the budget today and sort of collecting all the lines that were negative or I know that need of transfers at this point. So I'm working with the FinCom. I'm anticipating 2 more FinCom meetings towards the end of the year, one middle of this month, one middle of June. So I'm trying to get as many in that, collect as many as I can at a time so we're not meeting every week with the FinCom to do them. So some of these are just housekeeping items. The very first one, the $10,000, is we got the grant for $10,000, so that we need to put $10,000 into the line because we'll expend it from the line. We don't put the revenue directly into a line when we receive a grant. We expend from the line. So that is money that we received in a grant. The second one is from my increase for my contract. The bottom two are just long-term disability. You'll remember we added short-term disability halfway through the year, so there is a cost and it's been charged to that line, so I need to transfer in an amount to balance it. And then there's an increase in the police and fire insurance with the bill already came in and we're short about $2,400. The last one for town council, right now is an estimate.
Excuse me for 1 second. Excuse me, guys, I'm sorry, it's just hard to concentrate.
The last one for town council, we just received invoices around $15,000, and I believe that was through April, so we have a number of months still to go, so transferring $40,000 in anticipation of costs
Okay.
for the rest of the year.
I want to see us in the future less and less dependent on town council. I just think with the reduction of the lawsuits we have going on, we should be using them less and less.
Okay, take that comment. All right, so, and obviously anything that we don't expense, we'll just go right back into the
Right,
general.
correct.
All right, very good. Any comments on this? Mark?
No.
Okay. Okay, what's next?
This looks like a small transfer for conservation within their own budget.
Okay. Weed control on Lake Nipmuc.
Yep.
All right. Any, looks like the Finance Committee already approved this one.
Yes. They actually approved a couple the other night, but
All right, you good on this one, guys?
So what happened here? How come, did it cost more than we expected?
I'm not sure.
I might be able to address it.
Hey, I'd like to know, because to me, unless it's something unexpected that we had to do, and in the last two months we're kind of stuck, then I don't like doing it in this format.
I'll say right up front, I don't have a good answer for you, because my understanding was that the cost of the treatment was gonna be, I think it was $3,000 flat, and we got a $500 donation from, Lake Nipmuc Association? No, so I'm sorry, $3,200.
Yeah.
And then it came in, the whole thing came in above that, and in the contract for this coming year, this is not changing the topic, but in the contract for the coming year, there's actually 3 sections of payment. One's for like an upfront, almost like a down payment, then there's the major cost, and then there's a follow-up that's like $500. And then aside from that, it's written in an annual year instead of a fiscal year, so we're gonna get that changed. So there was all kinds of confusion going back and forth between the, prior year, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, this one got lost. Now that I totally understand the contract, I think we can manage to it. So I know that doesn't answer your question, but
Yeah.
it didn't cost more than we expected. I think the whole thing cost more than we expected. I didn't realize that we weren't gonna have the budget money to pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Mr. Schofield, I totally agree with your point. Fortunately, it's $268, it's within their
Yeah.
budget, so, all right. So you good with this one?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
Because it's small. Yeah.
Well, you're right, you bring up a valid point, there's no doubt about it. All right, which one's next, Kim?
So this one is for accounting services. You may recall that we contract out, but the funding is actually in a salary line, and so we actually need to move the money into a contractual line. We've been paying them out of professional services in the selectmen's budget, so this money needs to go into that line. There's not currently enough in there, but there's enough overall within selectmen's budget to sort of cover some of this too. So
Okay, so,
this is the balance of what we need.
so it looks like you're pulling it out of our
Right out of accounting.
accountant salaries
Right.
and also
Health insurance.
health insurance. Okay. All right, you good with that one? Mr. Schofield?
I'm just wondering what that says right there. That looks like Kimmy Newman to me.
Doesn't look like Kerry?
Kimmy.
Yeah, I'm good.
Kenny.
Yeah, Kenny.
It does look like a Y, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, any further,
Why? Because it's Kimberly.
I have a general,
Just missing half the letters in
I'm
between.
not done yet.
okay. There you go. Any other conversations on that, guys?
No.
All right. Okay. And the last one looks like the police department, correct? Chief, you want to come up and walk us through this one?
It's all coming from salary and wages. There's $36,000 in overtime, $10,000 to uniform allowance, and then is it 3,200 to 3,300 to my line item, my salary line item. So my salary line item, they've been taking holidays that I work out of the wrong account. I'm trying to square that away with the treasurer. I don't know why she keeps doing it. It's holidays, all budgets and salary and wages, and it keeps coming out of my account for some reason. So there's no more holidays that should come out of it, so that will clear that away, and hopefully next fiscal year they can square it away with the new accounting service we have.
Sorry, which account are you referring to?
Payroll service. So
chief wages.
my wages, I'll cover that one first. The holiday pay that I get is taken. Yeah. So anyways, next, overtime,
Put an H here.
we've been in a hole all year. We've been down 2 positions all year, and it's not getting any better. So those figures were there as of last week, so I may even need more come a month from now. And then the uniform allowance is a turnover of 2 guys, and I'm probably having some more uniform that I'm gonna have to spend. It's unavoidable before the end of the year.
Okay. Any other questions on that one?
Nope, I liked it. Transfers are happening inside his budget.
Strong budget management there, Chief.
Chief Kersey has been very strong all the time. He's been managing the budget.
Thank you.
All right, so I have a motion and a second, so all in favor on all the interdepartmental transfers as presented?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay.
I guess I
Let's
should
see. And the only other thing that we have right here is other topic.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I just have a question on the format of these budget transfers.
Oh, they still go on the.
Can we change it to from to?
It's always been backwards, always messes me up, I know.
No, and then half of them were one way and half of them were the other.
Not anymore, they're required to use the same form.
Can we?
Yes.
Can it be the from to? I just read it like.
But not this year.
That's fine, but.
Okay. Well, because we've already sent it out twice to say, use this exact form. So if I send it out now, they'd say, no, I changed my mind. I want you to switch it around and do it this way. Not that there should be very many from this point on, unless something comes up. Departments should have submitted them by now. So if they come in, then they're not watching their budget.
Right. So duly noted.
Now, one of the things we used to do every year, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go for it.
One of the things we used to do every year was to, you're gonna gavel me? Is to estimate what we have left in some of the other line items to see if we can scrape up enough to fill up the snow and ice deficit.
Don't hold your breath. We need 130 for snow and ice. So we'll keep a lookout.
Okay, because if we don't do that, that means we have to wait, right? Until free cash is certified, that's all the way in November.
Correct.
So it's worth the effort to at least kill some of it.
Right now, 20, 38, I've only got about 40,000.
Okay, so you've already scoured the line items to see where you had flexibility.
Without digging too deep. I mean, health insurance is our biggest, and that only had 70,000. And then FinCom reserve would be the second, and that's 40, and we just took a lot of that tonight for both. So.
Yeah, I mean,
Gotta be tight.
the unfortunate part when it comes to snow and ice is that folks are just waiting for their dough, you know, so, and that's the shame of it. But the only.
Yeah, well, they get paid, that's the point of deficit spending, right?
No, they get paid, but we gotta sit there and but we can't, our mechanism is the STM to transfer at that point.
Or raise it
out of
on
free
the
cash.
recap.
Or,
Well, Claudia and I used to scare it up, usually most of it, if not all of it, by doing Chapter 77 transfers towards the end of the year. But if it's not there, it's not there. I mean, that's.
Yep. So, okay. Anything else on that? All right, let's move on.
Make sure you sign those and get them to Laura. Here's
And
the
then,
folder.
looks like we have a topic not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours, which was to consider the approval of the parade permit, American Legion Memorial Day Parade, Monday, May 28th.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, didn't we have the the Brothers of the Brush Monument item on for tonight?
I spoke to the committee member. He wanted to push it out to the 21st of May. He needed some more time to get things together.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, don't worry, I asked on that. So I'll take a motion on that.
I move to allow the Roger L. Wood Post 355 Department of Massachusetts American Legion to hold a Memorial Day Parade on May 28th, 2018.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. And, let's see, just, executive session. So I move to enter into executive session under purposes, sorry? Oh, you have unanticipated business. You can bring it up and I'll let you know if I'm gonna talk about it or not. How's that? What do you got?
Oh, I have an inquiry. Asking about the budget transfer, you made me realize that we had requested an increase in funds for weed treatment for this coming year. And at the next Concom meeting this week, Solitude Lake Management is going to come in and talk to us about extension of the order of conditions, and we're supposed to consider signing the contract for this coming year, which we don't have the funds to completely pay. So I was going to ask about what's the process for looking at our budget to and our request. In other words, we requested like 4,600 and we're funded at 3,000 from a prior year.
Yeah, thank you. I was just gonna say that, actually.
We've got a couple of options to pay that bill.
Okay.
So depending when it comes in, right, so you're paying the contract in the first 30 days of the fiscal year?
Just a down payment, yeah.
How much is the down payment? How much of it can you afford to pay? $3,000?
Yeah,
correct?
up to 3,000, yeah.
Right, so you have a couple of options. You can ask them to take a partial payment and then pay the other piece later.
Oh, sure.
You can go to the FinCom and ask for an emergency fund transfer for the piece that you want immediately into the line that can happen anytime during the
Yeah.
year so that you could have enough to actually pay, or you could wait and transfer in November.
Yeah, okay. I just didn't want to,
But
I didn't want to do something improper by committing to a contract that we right now can't.
Well, you can commit to the contract, provided that the board approves this contract, right? So you can do that, but you can't pay it, which is the problem, right? So, but I'm guessing if you can make two partial payments and it's a small amount of money,
Right.
that's a small transfer.
That's not
And
an
the
issue.
FinCom has $40,000 in reserve that they
Okay.
could spend July 2nd, if need be, for this exact
Okay.
type of reason.
Right.
And they're aware of it because you already brought it up to them at the last meeting.
Okay, I just didn't want to do anything improper by signing a contract.
It's all right.
Thank you.
You do it all the time. No, I'm kidding.
All right.
We don't. We do not.
All right, so I move to enter an executive session under Purpose 3, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Mendon Town Hall Union Local 272, Mendon Highway Department Union Local 272, Mass Coalition of Police Union AFL-CIO Local 188, Mendon Police Civilian Dispatch Union Local 188A, and Mendon Permanent Firefighters Union Local 4936 IAF. Roll call vote is needed. I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Schofield, aye?
Real eye.
Burke, aye.
Was I mean, there's a part about, oh,
What?
there's a part about how are we adjourning?
Right.
Oh, yeah, it's not in here, yeah, we'll just reconvene to adjourn.
Reconvene only to adjourn, yeah.